Hello, hello. Sorry in advance for the lawnmower and stuff like that outside, but it happens, right? Especially this time of year. so, so just bear with me with that. Um, but with that said, I am excited to talk about today. It's going to be good. No, seriously though, we're going to cover a couple things that has and come about, I guess you can say, and is very, very interesting in my mind. That I have not only learned, um, but I'm curious if you guys know this because I spoke with a psychologist yesterday and she enlightened me in many different things, and I learn stuff all the time, and I am thrilled to be able to share this with you. Like I've always said, if I learn something new, I'm going to let you know. If I'm in an IEP and it's crazy, I'm going to let you know. If I have an IEP situation that happens that was new, surprising, crazy, etc., I want you guys to know because, we're all going through this. We're in this together. And in my mind, we should be helping each other out, right? So not only are you learning from me, I am learning from you. And, we have to, just stick together with that kind of stuff. All right. So yes, I'm like sitting all comfy on my couch. Share this if you would like, to whomever it is that you would like to share it with, that you feel could use some extra assistance when it comes to IEPs and the knowledge that they need to have to be successful. In getting their children what is needed and appropriate. I will say that this morning, literally about 15 minutes ago, I got off a call with a school district that the last meeting I had even spoken to you guys and said it was a freaking nightmare. And they completely did a 180 on us as to what we had initially agreed. And then today did the same thing, did a complete 180 on us, and we all of a sudden are coming back together. So it was amazing to see, and I'm glad everything has worked out. So that's a good thing. And I know. I said that I was done with IEPs this year the other day. I've actually kind of taken a mental break. But I have ESY meetings that are happening throughout this week, and one next week because I'm not allowing school districts to dictate what not IEP, ESY, what ESY is going to look like. Okay, so you're not going to tell me that this is what we offer 3 times a week at 3 hours a day or whatever, and that the parent's just supposed to sign and accept it and be all excited that their child qualifies for ESY. No, that's not how it works. ESY is catered to and is all about the individual child, just like the big I in IEP. And ESY is not about what the school system dictates that they have and what they offer. It is what needs to be offered to your child in order for them to maintain, to recoup. Depends on their disability, and the severity of it is one of the reasons, and of the 7 categories in which a child qualifies for ESY. So I'm not allowing school systems to dictate that. So then I send emails and I say that you basically refuse to provide this child ESY due to the fact that you wanted to dictate what is being provided, what's going to be provided, what goals are going to look like, what services are going to be provided, the time frame, the days, etc., and never once spoke with the parent. Basically dictated what was being offered, and it was a take it or leave it situation, when in fact it's an individually based situation, and you guys are going to need to comply with that in order to be providing the child FAPE. So now we have all these meetings because school systems are saying, okay, let's meet. Another story. Okay, so for those of you who have not ever caught me live, my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP. All right. I am very frank, transparent, in your face in reference to the IEP, how it goes, what it's about, you know, what the rules, regulations, federal law is, and I just keep it real. I am not your average advocate, which I love, and I keep it where I'm very transparent with you guys in regards to that, and that it is very authentic. So if you are new to Catching Me Live, post a 1 below. Tell us where you're from. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You guys know what to do. But if you are a 1, tell us where you're from. And if you haven't joined the group, go over to Autism Mama Rocks, the IEP group. Just stick that in the search bar and join the group. It's an amazing group. All right, so let's get going. All right, so in order for, I used to think, all right, and I even would say this to parents, and this is a truth and it is a misconception, okay? So we're all kind of afraid of that ID, you know, label, if you will, all right? And believe it or not, many, 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 many of our children actually do qualify under it. It's just not put into the IEP always. And there's a reason for that, okay? Where then it may come about later on down the road, all right? But here are the things that you need to know. So wait for it. All right, so I have a student that we are in the middle of a due process case in Texas. And, you know, I spoke to a psychologist that's going to be doing an IEE on the student. And what was really interesting was she called me and she said, hey, you know, I just wanted to run this by you. You know, the parent had said that you are the advocate and to contact you. And if I had any questions or things like that, or something wasn't working out with the school system, because sometimes they try to interfere with those IEEs, then, you know, to call you and have a conversation. So she called me and she said, listen, you know, with the IEE, I would really suggest that we just do this one area instead of the whole psychoeducational evaluation again. And I said, okay. And she said, you know, just to be specific. And I said, so what are you saying? And she said, well, where I'm finding an issue and in looking at the IEP and where I'm finding a real issue is the fact that they did not do a formal adaptive measure. All right, which that measure is what can rule in or out an ID disability. All right. And if an informal assessment, which is what this school district had done, all right, and it being done, they cannot use it in order to basically rule in or out the ID label. All right. So that's what they said. So they basically said that they were unable to come to a conclusion, if you will, based on the fact that they had done an informal assessment. But now they didn't say because we did an informal assessment, they just didn't rule it in or out. Okay. So that is very important to keep in mind. Okay. But at the same time, what's important to keep in mind is they cannot use it. And in order for them to use it, a formal assessment has to be done. And when that is not done, then what happens is it's a safe bet on their part to basically just say that they were unable to complete the assessment. All right. So number 3, a score, okay, an adaptive behavior with 2 or more under 70, all right, typically qualifies, especially if there's a low cognitive score. Now, for example, this child had a verbal IQ of 68, all right, and then they did an informal assessment and were unable to rule in or out anything because, and this was an informal adaptive behavior measure, to rule out anything because they were unable to do this assessment. All right. And so what happens is school districts are known, okay, to not give the best support in all areas, specifically academics, to students with an ID label. So our fear as parents, even my own with working with, different parents, is, we need to kind of stay away from that one because the school systems will use it against you. And now I have ammo. I love it. All right. So I was under that impression too. All right. And I'm like, okay, they'll use it against you. You don't want that because, they'll say, oh, well, there's no progress being made because they have an intellectual disability. And I never want that to happen. So I always avoid that category and that label, if you will, being put into an IEP. I don't care if it's said, but I don't want it into the IEP because I always, really kind of thought and have had the experience of it being used against you. All right. And so what is interesting, all right, is that when a child qualifies for intellectual disability, okay, 2 of the scores, all right, have to be under 70, and that's what typically will qualify them for it. And then associated with a low cognitive score, and then this child had a nonverbal IQ of 68, then, the combination of is kind of a hands down, yes, they qualify under that category. And that's, and this is her saying certain aspects of what I'm telling you. And one thing she did say is that's looking at all areas based on federal criteria in all disability categories. So she's saying that, hey, I don't have a choice. I have to, rule this in and out or out because that is what the results are saying. And so she said, I propose doing a formal adaptive behavior assessment so that we can rule in or out if this child has an ID label and falls into that disability category as well on top of autism, because this will qualify the students for not only things within the school system and district, but also outside where you can get outside services and things like that, because of that label. And so I said to her, I said, my main problem with that is school districts use it against parents. And, that really sucks. And they'll say, oh, the child's not making progress because of the ID label, the low cognitive score, and so on and so forth. And, here is where your argument can be. All right. Well, first off, a school district has no leg to stand on in court, is what she said. If they give an informal adaptive behavior measure, the child has a cognitive score of, let's just say in this circumstance, it's 68, it wouldn't hold up in court that this child was doing fine, okay? And her thought process is not only do we have 2 areas below 70, and given the score of the cognitive and the nonverbal, more than likely he meets the eligibility. Now, with that said, she still has to do the formal assessment in order to really rule it in or out. And she says specifically in the areas of reading and language alone, not being age appropriate is what the school is saying. She is saying that's absolutely inaccurate because he definitely has deficits in that area. So the school system does an informal assessment based on observation, teachers' comments, etc. Cannot rule in or out an ID label, but then says is doing, I said not age appropriate, and then says he was doing age appropriate work. All right. And the psychologist is saying there's no way he's not doing age appropriate work based on his IQ and, nonverbal cognitive score, along with the fact that he qualifies in 2 areas under 70 and that he definitely has deficits. And this is the area in which they did not do an assessment with fidelity. All right. So with that said, the argument with a school system saying, oh, this child has an ID label. So if parents ever say, oh, they're not making progress, oh, you're not providing FAPE because my child's 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind, then they just get away with it. That's not the case. So the case is it is known, okay, that public schools are not giving the best support, specifically academically, to students with an ID label. All right. And what that is saying is that they're not meeting them. And I just got out of an IEP meeting talking about this, and they actually agreed with me. Is you have to meet the child where they are. I mentioned that if you have a child who is in 9th grade but is on a 3rd grade level, damn it, teach them on a 3rd grade level. Why would you teach them on a 9th grade level? That's not where they are. Okay, so again, post a 1 below if it's your first through 3rd time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie, and make sure you tell me where you're from. All right, so continuing, if a child is on a 3rd grade level and is in 9th grade, I don't want to hear, oh, we have to expose them to age appropriate academics. No, you don't. Okay? There's no policy, law, federal law, or state that says a child in 9th grade has to be given 9th grade work, but they're on 3rd grade level. No, it does not say that anywhere in any book, in any place, in any state law, in any federal law, nowhere, 0, okay? If a child is on a 3rd grade level and they're in 9th grade, damn it, do 3rd grade work with them. Get them through 3rd grade. Move them on to 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and on. Okay? Do not teach a child on a level that they are not at. Okay? Because all you're going to do is have that child make very trivial progress and then take 5 steps back. Very trivial progress, 5 steps back. Then we're looking at ourselves in this place where a child is, where they're 5 years behind, and everybody's wondering what the heck happened. The school district then blames it on the ID label, when in fact they're not teaching the child where they are, meeting them where they are, and teaching them in a way in which they can learn. The how and who. How are they being taught? Who is teaching it? Meaning, who is teaching it? What are their qualifications? What is their experience working with children with ID, with, autism, with whatever? And then is the delivery of what they're doing in the right way? Is it getting through to that child? Is it not getting through to that child? And if it's not, then you change it up, you mix it up, figure out the puzzle, and solve it so that that child can learn. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, post them below. And don't be afraid of the ID label anymore. Okay? Because your argument is they're not being taught, which honestly, that's the argument across the board that I've always said, is they're not being taught in a way in which they can learn. If a child is taught, any child can learn, anybody can learn. So it's how fast, okay, and at what pace. Who cares what the pace is? But as long as they're making, more than trivial progress, cool, we're on the right track. So when that's being done, the how that child is being taught is being done in the right way. All right, and when it's done in the right way, then people make progress. When things are done in the right way, period, then things happen. Right? Then, happy things happen, good things happen, things come about, actions happen. We're not just all mouth, no action. It's one of those things where consistency is key. Always, always, always meeting a child where they are. Now, where I will say, if you have a child on the third grade level, they've mastered 80, 60, 70, well, I would say 70 or 80% of that level, then I would start a fourth grade level, but then you're still going back to the third grade of the areas in which they're still building. All right. So just because you have 20, 30% of the third grade you're still working on doesn't mean you don't move to fourth grade and still address that 30%. All right. But if you're just beginning a third grade, you're not moving to fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh grade. Okay. So you have to get a child to a certain point so that they can understand that built up additional higher level. All right. But again, goes back to if you don't meet a child where they are, they're never going to make sufficient progress, appropriate progress. It will always be trivial and de minimis. All right. And trivial and de minimis is not a provision of FAPE. All right. So don't be afraid of the ID label. Be more aware of how your child is being taught. Ask those crucial questions so that you can find out where your child is. If there are statements, like I just did in an IEP meeting, if there are statements being made of, this child is here, I had a baseline where the teacher is saying that the child is reading CVC words, but then the annual goal was the child is sounding out CVC words. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Still trying to figure that one out. Okay, so the baseline is the child is reading CVC words. The annual goal is the child is trying to sound out the CVC words, meaning phonemes, phonemic awareness. Something backwards there. Don't you have to know how to sound it out before you can read it? So I made that comment, and of course it was changed, but things people do. But those are the things that mom and dad did not pick up on. They thought the goals were good because the goals in themselves were not bad. But if that's not where the child is and you have no freaking clue where the baseline is, which the teacher did not, then how do you provide appropriate and smart goals for a child that is required if you have no clue where that baseline is? You can't. You can't do that. So it's very important to understand that those present levels better be on point. And if you don't understand the present levels, figure it out. Or find out how. Have somebody help you that knows what they're doing. And get those present levels on point so that you can then take those present levels, build off the need, the weaknesses, and create goals from them. And then you're able to dissect in the present levels what services and accommodations and possible modifications are then needed from those present levels. All right. Disability category is very important. The school system will brush it off and say it doesn't matter what the disability category is because they qualify under impact of disability from their disability. True. You get an IEP because of the impact of disability. However, what the disabilities are still important and need to go in that legal document. And there is no refusal to do so if that child has a legal diagnosis. Okay? Difference between school saying, oh, the child appears to show qualities of a child with autism. Well, that's freaking great. But that doesn't really tell me much. All right? Where you go to a doctor, psychologist, developmental pediatrician, whatever, and they diagnose your child with XYZ because they did so many tests. They have the knowledge base, they have the background, hopefully they have tons of experience and not a new person. But then again, I have a new psychologist who did an amazing evaluation that I recently saw. So, there's a difference, okay? Now, the school will argue that theirs means more because it's all based off the educational setting, don't you know? True, it is based off the educational setting. But what's based off the educational setting is not the evaluation that the school district did. What's based off the educational setting is what that child's disability is and how that disability affects them in the educational setting. Not that, the psychologist or whoever in the school system did the ADOS or whatever to say the child appears to be observed to have XYZ, in this case, autism, if it's the ADOS. And that's supposed to mean something. It doesn't. All right. You want to do the ADOS? Great. Do the ADOS. My child's already been diagnosed by a psychologist, but you want to do it? Fine. Do it. Still going in the IEP. So the fact that the school system wants to do the ADOS when your child has actually, in fact, been diagnosed with autism is so freaking stupid to me. Just dumb. Because whether they come up with whatever they come up with, that damn autism's going into that IEP because my child's been medically diagnosed with it. Who are you? Do you know what I'm saying? So that is an argument to be had. All right? I don't care what evaluations the school system does. Could care less. As long as there is impact of disability and there is evidence of, that's all is needed. All right? Evaluations, assessments show baseline data, shows where the child is, where the needs are, what we need to be working on, what goals could possibly go into place that would be appropriate, what services, accommodations, modifications, all of those things. But that is not done to be really associated in any way with a disability category. All right. So a disability category should, in my opinion, be based on a outside diagnosis. That, in my opinion, is not the school district's job. Their job is to take that diagnosis, see what part or all of that diagnosis is impacting the child in the educational setting, and as a team coming up with an IEP appropriate for that child. Makes it super simple that way. Instead of them saying, oh, well, we need to do the ADOS to see if your child appears to have autistic traits. Okay. My child has an IEP. Obviously, they got something. All right. So it's kind of very backwards in the way they do things, My son's not autistic according to the school, but they did offer social skills, sped floaters, and behavioral communication support parity. Yeah, it's the dumbest shit. Hala says, oh yes, I get that all the time where they are teaching him fractions when he can't even add yet. I know, it's crazy. It happens all the time. Hi, BB. Hi, Lori. Hi, Dana. Hi, Jem. Hi, Bill. How are y'all? How are you? Hi, Aaron. Okay, so that is it. That's all I got for today. All right. Thank you for sharing it to the group. Awesome. So that's it. I wanted to run that by you. I wanted you to, have that knowledge and, do with it as you will. But I do believe that it shouldn't be something we are afraid of. Now, with that said, I would be cautious regarding the ED label. All right. So the ID label, stop being afraid of. All right. That's saying that your child's cognitive ability is low. That means your child's ability to do certain things at that moment is low. Okay. And they qualify for that label under that disability category because of that. All right. Because 2 or more areas were under 70%. Okay. Now, with that said, that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that your child can't learn. It doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that the school system can use an ID label against you in stating that, oh, well, that child can't learn. That child's not going to make progress and hasn't made progress because they have an ID label. That's not our fault. Yes, it is their fault. Because what it is they didn't teach your child in the right way in which they learn. All right. So they can say what they say, but even according to psychologists that are saying that are not associated with a school that, are complete independent contractor, which this psychologist was like, no, 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 that's not the case at all. An ID label is important because it is saying that this is where this child's cognitive ability is right now, the baseline. All right, we need to change this. We need to educate the child in a way in which they can learn in the appropriate way, whatever it is that works for them. If that means you have to try 50 things before you get it right, then that's what you have to do. But the school systems don't want to do that, or they're teaching, as we all know, memorization versus understanding and full understanding and the appropriate way in which to learn. Which is, like, for example, with reading, it's, complete and utter word recognition and understanding words to be able to read and comprehend. All right. And then in other academic areas, it's different things. So with that said, keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of it. Again, if you have any questions, post them below. And it was good to see you guys. I know it's in the middle of the afternoon, 12 o'clock California time, but at the same time, you guys will catch the replay. And if you're catching the replay, wonderful. And I will talk to you guys soon. I will be going live another time this week with more content. I'm having trouble hearing you. Look, my Siri's talking to me. She said she's having trouble hearing me. All right. So with that said, I will see you guys again this week with more content, and we will go from there. Again, do not take an IEP break. All right? No, no, no. And especially this summer. Get your IEPs on point. Get started with that now. So the minute school starts, you are ready to fight it out, do whatever it is you got to do to get it in play and appropriate. I don't want to see you guys wait until Christmas to get some sort of appropriate IEP in place or any type of compensatory services that your child may deserve. Okay? I want you to get this going now. I'll talk to you soon.